So as I look at the Dame situation, I just wanted to say like, let's talk about the downsides. And I wanted to say this just to say like, what about if they don't win? And I'm sorry to be this way. I know that it's an exciting trade. It looks perfect. It looks really good for every single team that was involved. And honestly, even though it was a win-win-win, we do have to see what the bad sides might turn out for each team. I'm not just doing the Bucks, but let's go first for the Suns. The downside to this trade could be that you may lose more than what you gain, right? For the Suns, you gave away DeAndre and you got Yusuf Nurkic. Now Yusuf Nurkic is aging, and also he's a player which you're honestly taking a gamble on. Even though he's consistent and that's what you want, let's face it, not every player who you play is going to be as good as a guy like DeAndre Ayton. Yusuf Nurkic is a guy who does have an attitude, does play his role, right, as he has been, in the NBA for a while, but you're really taking a gamble on this guy and his abilities because honestly, for the Suns, it's like you traded away DeAndre Ayton, young number one overall pick, which even though wasn't happy in your franchise, you could still, have this guy which has enough potential. And if he had a breakout season, they could have just traded him for a big asset. But now that you traded DeAndre Ayton, right, to the Blazers, it really becomes like, what about if you don't succeed with Yusuf Nurkic? What about if Yusuf Nurkic can't guard centers the way that he normally does? What about if we can see what about if you can see, right, that Yusuf Nurkic has slowed down? And what about if this stunts the progress, right, of your starting five? Because even though Yusuf Nurkic is a better player, what about, like, chemistry? I'm sorry, but D-Book and DeAndre Ayton knew how to play with each other because they had done it for years. But if we're being honest, you bringing Yusuf Nurkic in, like, we just act like trades don't involve more than just, oh, these dudes are gonna fit perfectly and they're gonna play their exact same play style. It's like, no, let's face it. Like, you'll probably go to another team. You have to move. You have to get accustomed to the coach, to how they practice, to how they play, and you have to be resorted to a different role than what you were on your team for most teams. So when we think about that, are we saying DeAndre in maybe it would have been better to keep him, or is it better to have Yusuf Nurkic now and take the gamble just because of the size, consistency and age? But I'm not that scared, Yusuf Nurkic is a consistent center. I just believe that his attitude does scare me for the Suns. Second, and yes, I am doing the Bucks last, but for the Blazers, what do we have to say is this the right trade? It's very simple. Like, obviously, they're going to move Drew, right? It would be good to move him to a team, especially like the Heat, which a team which can give you a guy, even if they just want to get rid of something and they need a new point guard, right? Like Gabe Vincent left. Tyler Hero is not a point guard. Kyle Lowry is way too old. And even if they just give you back like Kyle Lowry and maybe, let's say, a few pieces here and there, Miami needs it more than you need a guy like Kyle Lowry and picks. Let's be face it. Like, Drew Holiday's a great player, and just his defense alone is going to get you far. Also, that he's a great mentor, so keeping him on your lineup is not a threat. And it's not a threat to your future, and it's not a threat for anything, right? Because let's be honest. But let's be honest, Drew Holiday is a great player, and he's not losing any value because everyone knows what his role in the league is. But what about if, like, let's say you trade Drew Holiday, you get some pieces back, whatever. You're not gonna get a lot from him because he's not like the most valuable player in the NBA. But what about if you just get Drew Holiday out of there and then your young team just doesn't work, right? And now I'm sorry to sound so pessimistic, but it's like you're gambling on the fact that Scoot is gonna be a generational talent, on that Anthony Simons is gonna improve more than he's already improved. And you're also gambling on the fact that Shannon Sharp is going to have some improvement to him. You're really trusting this guard core. You're really trusting these players to actually make it make sense. but these are young dudes, and it's not guaranteed that these guards are going to be game changing. They're going to provide a new, complete roster, shake up to your squad. They can promise you that you are going to be exciting and different. And I'm definitely excited to see Scoot next season. I think he's going to be a great player. But are you like it's DeAndre and the person who you want next to them, right? What is your future? Because like if this doesn't work, you're going to be stuck with no Dame, no Aiden, and you're going to be stuck like what you already rebuilt. This is your rebuild right now, and now that you're rebuilding, these players are not necessarily the most proven players of all time. What I am excited for is Aiden, because I do feel like a team where he just gets to do whatever he wants will probably do great for his development and his confidence. A guy who was limited to pick and roll score, but now actually gets to have a team which he is the number one guy by far. Let's face it, that's going to be great for Aiden. But finally, and the real thing we all want to talk about is what about if the Damian Giannis trade goes wrong? And for the Bucks, look, let's face it, with how loyal those two guys are, I think they're never leaving the Bucks, right? I think that it was more probable that they get traded, right, than for them to leave the Bucks. Because if we're being honest, the Bucks are a great team. They are, ran very well. They are extremely consistent with how they run things. They constantly make changes to try to make their team better. And if we're being honest, the Bucks are a great organization. But what about if this doesn't work, right? Like, I'm sorry, but Dame and Giannis are both two pretty delusional superstars. And they're two of the guys who would stay on a team for way longer than they need to just to give them a chance. Dame, that's the story of Dame's career, if we're being honest. And for Giannis, honestly, he stayed too long on the Bucks. Like, he lost 2 years of his career, right, that he could have played anywhere else. It worked out now that they got Dame, but if Giannis loses 2 or 3 more years of his career, you can't get those back. Right now, he's young. He has time to waste and time to develop and time to let his team move. But if this experiment of Dame and Giannis doesn't work for some reason, we're going to be looking at this first as the most disappointing team probably of all time. There are two guys which these are dream situations that we talk about when people, do their drafts in the NBA, right? Where they'll draft certain players from the modern NBA. A Dame and Giannis combo is something that gets brought up a lot, or a Steph and Giannis combo. So the fact that you have this on your actual roster, a real NBA roster, has both of these guys, this is not an all-star game, we have to say, you cannot fail. And that creates an expectation where it's like, if you fail, what does that say about you? What does that say about your organization as a whole? And what does that say about the superstars who you're picking to be your franchise leaders? Now, with all of this being said, I do want to say that honestly, this trade is one of a kind. I know that trades now happen a lot. I know that people really like talking about, new trades and how they work and, which team could trade which star. But these superstar level trades, which which shake up the league in this way, are not normal, right? And if we're really being honest, the fact that this happened, in my opinion, and I'm not going to hate or anything, I'm just going to say, we should really appreciate what's going on, right? Because when we look at something so simple as a trade, and then you look at the fact that people now in this trade might win 2 or 3 championships based off of this, really affects the NBA and its trend scores. I just wanted to say that I really like this trade. Even if they don't win a championship, I'm just excited to see what they're going to do on the court, Dame and Giannis together. I believe that it's a great pairing. It reminds me of a Kobe and Shaq. And honestly, I really want just to get the season started to see this. Tell me what you think about that, and thank you for watching.